Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Brass Junkies. I almost just said the entrepreneurial musician. I've almost done that like 3 times. One of these times I'm going to do it and then we're going to keep it in. But what podcast is this? Who are you? Yeah, you in the glasses. Lance. Lance LaDuke, my co-host on the Brass Junkies. How are you, Lance?
I feel like an entrepreneurial musician.
Lance moved in with his girlfriend, which is a massive step up for him, and just a tragic turn of events for her because she's beautiful and she's funny and smart and has options, is the blunt way to put it. So he lives in a nice house now, and it's funny because his office is now in the basement, and there's like a single bare light bulb over his head, and it just kind of looks like something out of like a Silence of the Lambs sequel, which is funny because he like lives in a fancy neighborhood now, and now he kind of looks like a serial killer in his basement. So,
Clarice.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, we have David Silverman of The Simpsons. Yeah, he's a badass sousaphone player. And he's been working on The Simpsons from the beginning.
How did you do that?
I don't know. I met him through Twitter. So believe it or not, like, and he and I had even chatted on the phone before we interviewed him, like all just through Twitter. So, the tuba is a unifying thing, man. It's like, it unifies.
There's a shirt.
The
tuba
country
is the unifying thing.
The country needs more tuba these days. So. Congress needs more tuba for sure.
Well, I would be, for sure. I'd agree with that.
Yeah. I may or may
Less
not. I took my my kid to the Smithsonian, which I do all the time, and I may or may not have when he was down on the ground picking up rocks. I may or may not have photographed myself flipping the Capitol building, the bird from right in the middle of the National Mall. And the best part was there were like 3 high school kids who were walking towards me, and I heard one of them say to the other one, she said, "Did you see what he just did?" And then the other girl was like, "No, what?" She's like, "He flipped the Capitol, the bird." It was very funny. So, anywho. Yep, you're a serial killer. I'm flipping Congress off, and we've got a famous guy on the podcast. So, really quickly, wanted to thank Parker Mouthpieces for providing our hosting. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz artist model tuba mouthpiece. Which when I'm not angry at Congress, I put my stamp of approval on, and the Lance LaDuke model euphonium mouthpiece. So he still has not quite qualified for it to be the artist model Lance LaDuke mouthpiece, but we're getting close. So
nice artist with a capital R.
There's a chair test coming soon. So you can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com, or you can follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And Lance just walked away. So I think now he's changing the color of the light. Whoa, and there's like a blink.
I had to shut the door.
Oh.
We got to work out the noise negotiation.
Ah, I see. The noise negotiation. See, this is real time.
Real life, people.
Real time domestication happening here. So this is kind of exciting. Okay, there are 3 ways that you can help support the show. The first one we actually are pretty excited about because we quite recently we hit our first Patreon goal, which Patreon is a platform where you can go and regularly support people doing what they do, and we do podcasts. So we do podcasts good. So we reached $50 an episode. That's pretty crazy.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Thank you, Patreon patrons.
So we were supposed to record a live episode in Ithaca at Nurtec, and there was just a whole bunch of things that ended up transpiring, and it ended up falling through. And actually, we had a great idea. Lance had a great idea. We were going to actually take the trumpet photos because the Patreon reward for getting to $50 an episode was we were going to be photographed with trumpets, and we were going to do it during the live show at Nurtec, and it was going to be just a good collective trumpet bashing exercise for us and the audience alike. The show got canceled, so yeah, the whole thing just kind of fell through. So, but the good news is that when you are hearing our lovely voices, if you download this the day it comes out, then the next day we're going to be we're doing a recording session with Cones and Tones with JD Shaw and Lance LaDuke. I'm freaking brain dead. David Cutler. That's the doctor, David Cutler. And we're going to do the trumpet photo down there. So, but Lance, why don't you tell the people, the nice people here, the lovely people that are listening about what our reward is going to be when we reach $75 an episode?
Well, at $75 an episode, we are going to. Was that the one we're doing the stream? See, we just said this.
Yes.
And now I've forgotten.
Yes.
We're gonna host a private little concert for our Patreon patrons, an online concert that Andrew and I will play. A variety of things for you. Might sing some songs. Might do a card trick. I don't know any card tricks. Do you know a card trick?
No, I could Google one and then do it poorly.
No, but we'll give you a free mini concert for all of you wonderful, wonderful patrons who participate and get us over the threshold of $75 an episode.
We're at 63 right now as we were recording this.
$12. Come on, we're getting close.
We are knocking on the door. So, yeah. And then also the one after that, which is, I think, really the true prize, $100 an episode, which we've had some momentum lately. So hopefully this isn't too far away. But we are actually going to record a trumpet duet. So, and we are going to record the struggle that is us recording a trumpet duet, and that should be pretty awesome.
I totally agree.
Maybe we should make it a trio with one real trumpet player, like with one of the best in the world who's easily frustrated. We will put it this way: Lance and I will be playing the trumpet together, and we may or may not subject somebody as a trio, but that's a little ways off. We got time, but that's our $100 per episode. But 75, we are knocking on the door, which is pretty sweet. The other one, which we want to thank you for, is that we had recently set a goal of 50 reviews on 50 ratings on iTunes, and we just passed it. We've got 51. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. You can leave a rating or a rating and a review. I think we've got 31 reviews and we've got 51 ratings, which really is it's awesome. We really appreciate it. And so you don't have to leave a review, which is the important part here. Yeah, you can just leave a rating, which it just helps people to find us. So our next goal is 100 ratings. So one of the recent ones, which really amused me, was a 5-star rating, and the review was titled "Crackin' Jokes and Spreadin' Knowledge," and neither one of those had a G on them. This podcast is incredible. It is informative, insightful, and full of brass player humor. What more could you ask for? Pray for Jens. So I like cracking jokes and spreading knowledge. That's actually what my LinkedIn profile says. So
cracking knowledge and spreading notes. That's my motto.
Yeah. And then the last way that you can help the show of the 3 ways is to share it with a friend. So especially one that you don't think would enjoy it. For some reason, we really get a kick out of imagining people who would not appreciate what we do being subjected to it. So, hey, a download's a download. So, I think that's it for...
no, that's not it.
Uh-oh.
We got to thank Duquesne University, the Mary Packard School of Music. Those wonderful folks, thanks to Jim Nova. He spearheaded getting us sponsored by Duquesne, and thank you very much to them. You can find a link to more about the brass area and the School of Music at Duquesne University in beautiful and sunny Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, by checking the show notes or going to duq.edu.
See, that's the problem with the Entrepreneurial Musician podcast, is that since I'm solo, I actually have to be organized. It's annoying. So, yeah, you help me to remember the stuff that I forget. So when it's just me. I need you with your bare light bulb just dangling over heads. So, overheads. Oh man! And now he just turned it on, and so now it's kind of like this blinding light. It's kind of like that scene in True Romance, with Christopher Walken. Anyway, this is terrifying. So, all right. So without further ado, we are going to get to our conversation with sousaphone player and superstar of The Simpsons, David Silverman. And today, Lance, we are actually joined by a legitimately famous person. How did that happen?
I don't know. I'm not prepared.
I think I'm worried that he thinks he's getting paid or something.
Bona fide famous person, and now we have our second bona fide famous person.
Yeah, I know. It's without further ado, David Silverman. How are you, David?
Oh, fine, thank you. I didn't realize I was famous.
But, well, compared to us and the other guests that we get who are friends of ours, you are.
Okay, fair enough. I'll take it.
Big fish, very small puddle, I guess, maybe. But you know.
Well, it's a pleasure to talk to you both. So, yeah, happy to be here.
So, David is a sousaphone player who plays all sorts of stuff all over L.A., where he lives, although he's currently here in D.C. With me, although we're not together. He's visiting some family out here. But David plays with Vaught and the Villains, which is a band that he plays with a lot. And a lot of you know him as the burning sousaphone, the flaming sousaphone guy from Burning Man, and he's been on Leno. And but he also, the reason that he's like legitimately famous is that he has worked on The Simpsons forever and a day, and was the director of the Simpsons movie, and is a world-renowned animator and producer and sousaphone player. So lots of stuff to talk about. So let's start with how did you first start playing the sousaphone?
Oh, well, it's interesting. I'll go back a little too far. I think my parents wanted me to learn piano like most young kids, and it didn't really take when I was 5 years old, But what did take is my interest in music and the ability to read music. I certainly learned that. And what happened was I started getting more and more interested in the way music sounded, and along with buying records, I started buying miniature scores, which I guess was an unusual practice for, a young teenage boy. And I got very interested in following along with scores. And I think I bring that up only because what I was doing was I think, training my brain to be musical by listening to music and following along with music and understanding how, what all the everything meant. And I bring this up only because I picked up the tuba when I was 17, in my last year of high school, which I think is comparatively late than most people, brass players, pick up a musical instrument.
Sure.
I had a lot of friends who were in the band and in the high school band and also in the junior high band. And I felt, to quote another famous tuba-playing cartoonist, Jared Hoffnung, British musician from the 50s, who died sadly far too young at, I think, the age of 39. But he was a great cartoonist for Punch and also a tuba player. And he sort of had the same, he put it very well. He said, I could no longer be an observer. I had to be a participant in music. So, and then, then the tuba, it was something I've always loved. I love the sound of the tuba ever since I was a kid. I was very much motivated by Preservation Hall Jazz Band, which I would see, in person and on PBS in those years in the 60s. And also, we had traveled. We had gone to Germany, and I was fascinated by the German brass bands, particularly the tuba. I just love the sound of it. To this day, I think it's a wonderful, bass sonority, and it also has a great musical, just a great, almost human voice-like sound, to me anyhow. And it's also kind of funny.
Right.
So,
yes.
And I like funny things. It's this big, colossally giant horn. I mean, I just love the fact that, okay, you have the trumpet. It's basically, it's what? It's about 4.5 feet, and the trombone's an octave lower, so it has to be 9 feet. And to get we just want to get an octave lower. It takes 18 feet of tubing to do it, okay, folks? I mean, it's a lot of brass. I was just trying to get an octave lower. Nope, we got to double it. 9 feet, nuts to that, 18 feet.
That's right.
So it's all kind of funny. You just got to, and it's this big, it's both beautiful looking and funny looking.
Yeah.
So,
like Lance.
What's that?
I said just like Lance.
So we have a friend, there's a guy named Ron Davis who teaches tuba and euphonium at the University of South Carolina. And this is going back probably 20 years or so, he wrote an editorial for the Tubists Universal Brotherhood Association, talking about the fact that some of us had forgotten that the tuba was funny, and that that is a part of the personality, because sort of comes with it. And boy, did he have his rear end handed to him. Man, people they could not hang. Like the same people he was talking to, of course, could not hear it. But yeah, you're dead right. I think it's
yeah, and I don't mind that at all. But the main thing is it's just a joy to play, at least for me. So. I took to it rather fast. So that was the interesting thing, because I had a wonderful band teacher at John F. Kennedy High School in Maryland, outside of D.C. And his name was Alfonso Salazar. And Dr. Alfonso, as we called him, he was a doctor in music. I think he was from Chile, and he was a wonderful, wonderful band teacher and a wonderful man. I think he actually retired from teaching, became a minister. He's just a really wonderful guy. And I remember asking him, he taught a class actually, sort of an early sort of music theory class that we would go to. And I noticed there was a tuba sitting there that just was not moving. Clearly, nobody was playing the tuba. And I asked, Dr. Fonz, can I borrow that tuba over the summer, learn how to play it? And I'll never forget, he had a broad smile on his face, and he said, "Oh, would you?" He was so happy. I'll never forget it. I was just one of these things like, wow. I thought, I was going to give him all these reasons why. Just like, no, please learn it. So I did.
So what'd you do? So you took it home that summer, and how'd you tackle it?
I went to I think it's still here. I think I went to in Wheaton, Maryland, a place called Chuck Levin Music, and there's a guy there who was a trumpeter. Yeah, and he taught me. I mean, he wasn't a tuba player, but he was a brass player, and he taught me. And he was actually impressed that I was fairly quickly got a decent sound out of it, and Professor Fonzo, he threw me in the deep end right away. So my first time coming and playing in band, we played a Rossini overture, Barbara Seville. Not the hardest, not as hard as Semiramis, but, tricky for a first-time tuba player.
Sure. Well, how cool is that he had so much faith in you? He's just like, go do this. You'll be fine.
It was great. And it was really like, okay, just go for it. And it really was a great way to learn. And we did the whole second military suite, that has a pretty exposed tuba at the end with the so it was good. It was trial by fire. So I did very well, and then I went to the University of Maryland and joined the concert band, sort of the basically anyone's welcome concert band, even if you're not a music major.
Sure. Even you, David, come on in.
Yeah, even you. But they put me in his first chair on the tuba, I was very surprised. Out of the 3 tuba players, they put me in first. So I must have done something right. So I was doing pretty well.
Huh. And then you ended up out at UCLA, right? To major in animation.
Yes, exactly. And so, and again, I joined the concert band, because I wanted to enjoy that. And I was always getting people asking me to join the marching band. I was like, well, I don't really have time for the marching band. It seems like fun, but I really don't have time for it. I'm here to do animation, and I spent most of my time like late nights working on animated film, because animation is a rather, painstaking frame by frame situation of filmmaking. So for like 2 years. I transferred from Maryland, so I was in my junior and senior year at UCLA, and then I went into the graduate program to get my master's in animation. And at that point, they came to me and they said, "Okay, look, we are going to Japan. The marching band's going to Japan for 8 days. If you join the marching band, you will go to Japan. What do you say?" I said, "Okay, you've talked me into it." So I did, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, not only did I really enjoy the marching band, they made me, well, because I can handle a pencil, they made me the band cartoonist, and that was great experience for me. And it was really it was great all around rather. It just was a wonderful time, and hats off to the UCLA marching band.
So what were you studying at University of Maryland?
I kind of went in as an art major. They didn't really have a great film department per se. In fact, the guy who was head of it, it's called the Radio, TV, and Film Department, was Dr. Gene Weiss, who was a friend of my dad's, because my dad was a professor at the University of Maryland in chemical engineering. And he basically said, David really should go to a school out in California, either Cal Arts or UCLA or USC. That was his advice. So I was ostensibly an art major. I was mainly fulfilling my, university, the GURs, General University Requirements.
Right.
And so, but I also, that's interesting too. I took, not only did I make an animated film while I was there, setting up an independent study program, I had set up an independent study program to do a caricature of the National Symphony Orchestra of Washington, D.C.
How cool is that?
Yeah, it was great. I had done a sort of drawing, orchestra drawing when I was in high school, and I remember going to a National Symphony Orchestra concert, and I went to see the concertmaster at the time that I had met, Moran Kojan, who's now a musician out in Los Angeles, but he was concertmaster at the time. And I showed him this drawing, and he was flabbergasted. And he said, "We're going to show this to the conductor that day was James DePriest, the great late James DePriest." And I told him my idea of doing a caricature of the NSO, and he just sort of shrugged and said, "Well, sounds great to me. I'll tell you what, I'll put you in touch with the general manager of the orchestra." And so he did, and I met with him, and I told him my idea, and he said, "What would you like?" And I said, "Well, my idea is to go to rehearsals and sit out in the not with the orchestra, but out in the concert hall, sort of the perspective of the audience, and with field glasses, and sketch them from afar. That way I wouldn't bug them during rehearsal, and that way I could see them as they said, 'Sure, kid, whatever you want. Sounds good to me.'"
Wow.
So I did, and I became very good friends with the late great David Bergunier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the tuba player there, and he gave me some lessons, and he was great. He said, "Okay, whoa, all right, let's fix the things that you didn't learn to do properly. You got the smiling embouchure going. Let's get rid of that. Okay, you're sticking your lower jaw forward. I think you shouldn't do that." And just great things like imagine, playing the tuba. Imagine there's a cork between your teeth, and drop that lower jaw down, and all that kind of stuff. So he gave me a great deal of useful advice. So
it's a great story.
So I can just imagine the guys in the orchestra like, who is with the binoculars out there?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I all became friendly, and I started doing like individual drawings for them.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Did you run in with like Milt Stevens or any of the brass guys?
Yes, I did. I met Milt, and who else? Man, just say the names, and I'm trying to remember them.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Wow.
See, I was in the Air Force band. I got there in '91, and so we would run in with those. Well, Milt was just a legend in the area.
Absolutely.
What a sweet man too. Goodness gracious.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they were all great. And who was? And Milt played. What chair was he? Was he?
He was principal.
I think he was principal. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, had you always can we back up a little bit?
Sure.
When did the love for cartooning and animation start? Was it in parallel with the music before or thereafter, or how did you end up going in that direction?
In parallel, absolutely in parallel. I was drawing ever since I was 4, and I think of the time I was 5, I was fascinated by animation and wanted to be an animator. I don't know how I figured it out at 5 that you could do that as a living. Yeah. You know what? I do know. There was a Woody Woodpecker show that was introduced by Walter Lantz.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I remember.
Woodpecker would say, "Oh, here's my boss, Walter Lantz. Hi, Woody. Hi, boys and girls." And he would show, behind the scenes of making animation. And it's like, it had an impression on me, either 5 or 6, however young I was. It's like, wow, look at that. These are guys drawing pictures for a living. So.
And those self-referential, those Warner Brothers ones, when you were watching Daffy Duck be tortured.
Sure, yeah.
For the animator.
Great Duck Amuck, yes, absolutely.
Yep. That was so funny.
So, really, and by the way, and I guess part of my brain was being introduced to, classical music, as many of us do, thanks to Carl Stallings.
Sure.
Generous helpings of Respighi and Rossini and Raymond Scott and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they would all do that. They would all have crazy references to classical music. But I got very interested in classical music at the same time. I just loved it. I still do. It's a wonderful thing for the ears.
It's a maybe weird. Well, it's a weird question. I'm weird. So, how did one thing inform the other, if at all?
Oh, it's a very interesting thing. Animation and music, and animators of music, go hand in hand. Art as well, certainly, but animation definitely. Well, of course, the Ward Kimball and Frank Thomas, Disney legends, 2 of the 9 old men of Disney, right. And Ward formed the band, the Firehouse 5+2. Ward was a trombone player. Frank played the piano. By the way, I think that Frank Thomas animated the great scene of Captain Hook playing the piano as he's trying to entice Tinkerbell to betray Peter Pan. And so he was perfect to have Captain Hook playing the piano with a hook and using the hook as basically a left hand. And I imagine Frank's familiarity with playing the piano helped him very much in that sequence.
Wow.
That's pretty funny.
So the point, and there are a lot of, there's men like many, just in my own experience, when I was at Pixar, we sort of formed what we call our own Firehouse 5 band called the War Room Rascals. And that's because Bud Luckey, who you can look him up, Bud Lucky's a great animator and designer. He really did a lot of work, great work at Pixar, and did a lot of things on Sesame Street. But he's also a very fine banjo player and singer, and a pretty good songwriter. Pete Docter, who's a great animator and Pixar director, did Up and Inside Out, and I co-directed with him on Monsters, Inc. He's a terrific musician. He's a fine fiddle player and mandolin player and bass player, because he and his 2 sisters grew up with the Suzuki method. You know? But he went in animation. Both his sisters are actually classical musicians. One plays cello one plays cello in the Met. The other's in the string quartet.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like, okay, he played violin. One of his sisters played viola. The other played the cello.
Wow.
So you play in the marching band. You get to go to Japan. Well, how was the Japan trip, by the way?
It was fantastic. It was really great.
What were you doing over there?
Well, it was a very interesting time. Mitsubishi used to sponsor a regular season college football game in Japan called the Mirage Bowl. You could look it up on Wikipedia, and it'll tell you all about it. And it was UCLA versus, I don't know. Again,
the other team, the less good team.
Right. Well, it's kind of UCLA was the team they were interested in. It was very popular at the time. And this is back in 1980. It was the UCLA merchandise was popular in Japan and so forth. And so
UCLA defeated Oregon State 34-3.
Yes, that's what it was. I remember now. Yeah. I remember it was Oregon State.
Yeah.
And they had written a song called UCLA Feeling. So, anyhow, we had a great time. They loved the band, if perhaps even more than the football teams. They were more interested in the marching band.
Well, I tell you, when Andrew and I would go there with the Boston Brass, man, they love brass.
Yeah,
I don't know
absolutely.
Something in the water, boy. We would be, we're as knucklehead as they come, and we'd be signing autographs for an hour after a concert, at least every night. Like, you realize we're just low brass guys, right? We're not actually important in any way.
We weren't even renowned podcasters at that point.
That's at that point.
Renowned. Well, what's interesting is that after we played, we played a pregame show, right? And then we played halftime. Then we did postgame show. And band director said, why don't you guys just sort of run around the field and just wave and say hi to people, Well, we were there for about 2.5 hours signing autographs.
Right.
We started off running around waving, and they kind of stopped us and held up like, sign this. And we signed autographs. I remember walking very slowly around the field perimeter of the Tokyo Stadium and signing autographs. It was fantastic.
That's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was worthwhile.
I joined the choir at my high school because they were taking a trip to Toronto. Very similar. My girlfriend was in chorus. Actually, can you imagine this happening today? The answer is no. I had a rehearsal or something that I couldn't miss, and so rather than taking the bus with the rest of the chorus from Boston, I actually flew by myself from Boston to Toronto, and then knew that they were going to be at a museum at like noon. This is obviously well before cell phones, and then took a cab by myself in a foreign country from, as a part of a public school trip from the airport to the museum, and then met up with them that way.
Never would happen today.
Can you imagine if you even asked? Like, I mean, the administrator would probably wet themselves from laughing so hard if you were to ask if you could just fly yourself up there and just hail a cab and meet them at a random museum. So
no problem.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's amazing we weren't all killed.
No. We survived somehow.
So how did you get into playing the non-legit stuff that you do now? You do a whole lot of you're not playing the Holst second suite in F these days, it doesn't seem. So how did you transition?
That was an interesting thing, because I was always marveling at people who could just play off the top of their heads. I couldn't really do that. When I was in marching band, I always had to have music in front of me. I could memorize music when we were marching, but I didn't have that. I didn't have basic music theory. I didn't have basic chord theory, so I wouldn't know what the hell to do. But I was getting more and more interested in doing it, and I was playing along with recordings, whether it's like Firehouse 5 or Preservation Hall or Sidney Bechet or Louis Armstrong. I was just sort of playing along with recordings and trying to learn more and more. You know what it was? It was going to Pixar. I got, and it was Bud Lucky who really helped me out. But going back to him at Pixar. Also, too, there was a gap between the time that I had a tuba and did not have a tuba. I didn't have my own horn. I always played horns, either the high school or the college, because I couldn't afford one back then.
Sure.
Tubas are expensive.
They are.
And so, then I guess after The Simpsons happened, and we've been working for a little while, a little part of my brain said, hey, listen, you idiot, you can actually buy a horn now. You can afford one.
Some guys like convertibles. You bought a sousaphone.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't buy a sousaphone. I bought tubas. I really wasn't like interested so much in the sousaphone for whatever reason. I was more interested in the tuba.
How did you decide what to buy?
It wasn't easy. I didn't know what I was doing, especially back then. It was much easier now because you have the internet to inform you what to buy. So I bought a small horn from my friend Gary Kaiser, who had moved to France. He's in a band called Sacapouls in France, and he's a fine tuba player. He was a friend of mine from UCLA days, and he was always playing. He was great. He studied with Rosie McCarr in Los Angeles, and great. He's a great jazz tuba player, one of the best.
You ever run into Jim Self out there?
Yes, I did. Later on, I met Jim Self, and I consider him a very good friend. In fact, I've done a couple of album drawings for him.
Oh, cool.
His Christmas album and his recent Cuba album.
Awesome.
Have you gotten to play the fluba?
I haven't played it myself. I've watched him play it. It's fantastic. I'm not so good on the F horns. I haven't figured the thing. I'm not one of those sort of tuba players. I'm okay, but I'm not like,
On all but a handful of F tubas, the low register is such a pain in the ass that it's not really worth the time it takes to figure it out. So
I guess. Well, I guess when you're playing the F tuba, you're going up for the high one for the B-low solos and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I have to take a moment to brag about the fact you mentioned Sidney Bechet. My grandfather played with Sidney Bechet quite a bit in Chicago, and family lore, I don't have anything to back it up, but family lore is that the first jazz concert in Orchestra Hall in Chicago was Sidney Bechet, and my grandpa was playing drum set.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I got a cool picture of them hanging out together in my house here.
Wow.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. We should interview your grandpa on the podcast, Lance.
That would be cool. We'd do like a seance thing, because he's been dead a good long time now. He'd be a good interview.
I guess it's not a great idea.
There's a fine line between good ideas and not good ideas.
I was surprised that he was still alive, but I was just playing along.
I gotta say, he played into his 90s. I remember going to a gig, just at a restaurant. It was kind of hilarious, actually, because the young guy in the band was like 85, and my grandpa was probably 92. It was a trio: bass, keyboard, drums. And my grandpa had this tremor, and until the tune started, and then he'd play, and he was just totally fine. And then as soon as the tune stopped, then his hands would start shaking, which is not the funny part. The funny part is,
that's not uncommon, by the way. I have a story about that too. But sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, it's okay. These guys couldn't hear anything, and so someone would say, we're going to play Satin Doll, and they what? The Satin Doll, Satin Doll, and then finally somebody would just start playing. And they okay, and then they'd all play. And it was like there was this little sideshow between every tune. I just lost my lunch. I was laughing so hard, and then they play, and it was awesome, and then they wouldn't, and then oh gosh. And for years, my grandma would say, "Hey, you remember that guy Bill Jones, the bass player?" I was like, "Kinda." He was, yeah, he's dead. Sorry. And then, you remember Jimmy Rabinowitz was that great keyboard guy. You remember him? Not really. Yeah, he's dead. Hey, Grandpa. Thanks a lot.
Well, that's an interesting conversation. Thanks a lot. Well, I had mentioned Rosie McCarr. He lived. I think he lived into his late 90s. Playing clarinet and saxophone all the way, melody sax and soprano sax and so forth. And he had terrible tremors until he put the horn to his mouth and started playing. It was gone,
Oh, wow.
But afterwards, yeah. So the power of music, my friends.
Yeah, there you go.
So
there have been some studies now that if you play an instrument, if you start at as a child and you play throughout your life, there's been some research that indicates that staves off dementia. It holds off dementia for some reason.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. But
yeah.
So anyhow, by the way, getting back to I had, as I say, this gap of not playing, and then I was playing music again. And when I got to Pixar, I was working on The Simpsons, and after nearly 10 years, this can't last forever. So I had gotten an offer to go to DreamWorks, which I did, and then I got an offer to go to Pixar. I won't get into that so much, but so at Pixar, I was impressed that they had all these sort of musician animators. Bob Peterson, great story artist and director at Pixar, later director, plays trumpet, and Pete plays mandolin and fiddle, and Bud Luckey plays banjo. And Bud kind of took me under his wing, literally, and I learned how to play tuba from him. He got a couple of books, and I got a chord book for myself, and I started learning the chords. And I remember playing with him once, and literally the penny dropped, and I said, "Oh, now I get it." And actually, what's happened since then, whereas before I would read music, I'm much more comfortable with a chord chart and just figuring things out. Music confuses me now. Written music.
So how did the flaming sousaphone first come about?
Well, the flaming sousaphone, I always refer to it as a flaming tuba, just because it's sort of a little quicker.
Sure.
And also, Ben Jaffe, he's the artistic director and runs Preservation Hall. He always said that I refer to my sousaphone as my tuba, and my tuba as my pea shooter. So I thought, all right,
love it.
I'll call the sousaphone a tuba from now on.
There you go.
It is a tuba. It is a tuba.
Sure.
So what? Oh, is it not a tuba? It's a sousaphone. It's like, let me explain it to you. Forget it. So I had started going to Burning Man in 2001, and in 2002 I went again, and I was dating a girl, Anna Maltese, and she's an artist, was an artist on The Simpsons, and a fire dancer, and I was impressed with all the fire tools that they had. Anything, like fire swords and fire staffs and fire hoops and all that. It was all this wicking that you can apply to, anything and set it on fire. And I thought, well, maybe it'd be interesting if you took some wicking and attached to the top of the bell of the sousaphone. And I thought, well, I wonder if there's some way, there must be some way if you had propane and to have a valve regulate the movement of it. That'd be kind of interesting looking. And so I am not really mechanically inclined in that respect. And even if I was, I didn't know enough about propane to do something stupid, like try to figure this out for myself. So she introduced me to somebody who's in construction who knew what he was doing. And so I told him my idea, and he kind of figured it out. I just said I need a valve to move on my left hand, so when I play a note, I can push the valve, make the flame jump. And okay, well, that's not so hard to figure out. And so he devised it, and that's what happened. So in 2005, I went to Burning Man with a flaming tuba. And it was really a big hit. It was a bigger hit than I thought it was going to be. I just thought it would be kind of fun. And people said, well, where did you come up with the idea? And I said, well, what do you mean? It seems like it was lying there on the floor for anybody to pick up. I think it's, tuba, flames. Why wouldn't you?
So I was in the marching band at Michigan State, and there was this legendary, I'll use that term guardedly, there was this trombone trio that would appear. It was three guys from the band, and they would sort of parody whatever team we were getting ready to play and put on little skits, musical things to entertain the rest of the band members. And I became their prop master. And one time they wanted to do this thing where one of the guys started playing Flight of the Bumblebee, and then his trombone caught on fire. And so I was charged with helping figure out how we were going to make this happen. So we had this beater trombone, and the one of the guys in the trio was like, I'll take care of the fire part. Like, okay, fine. So I found him the horn. They start playing. He's got this. He basically had a bucket of gasoline, and he dipped a rag in it and stuck it in the bell, and then lit it on fire. And so he's playing, one of the guys is playing Flight of the Bumblebee, and then he's going to switch to this flaming trombone.
Right.
And just as he puts the horn up to pretend to play it, he sees this glowing light coming at him from the lead pipe of the horn.
Oh, no.
And he moves it out of the way just in time, and this, flame just shoots way past his head, just past his ear, because of course it's going to go. Fortunately, no trombonists were harmed. Of this stupid bit.
That's weird. I would have assumed that would have all gone smoothly. With your
possibly wrong.
To me.
With your.
Yeah. As we say on The Simpsons, nothing can possibly go wrong.
That's
so yeah. Well, you see, flaming tuba to me seems safe because the flame is it's about 2 feet above your head. Right?
Yeah, you're good.
Right.
And it's one thing about propane; it tends to burn straight up. It doesn't go down or to the side and all that. So it's a very nice feature of propane. So I played it in relative safety for until 2015 at Burning Man. We had little mishaps. so not too bad. Some
Do
flames
tell.
came out. Well, one of the things, because the bell, detaches, I had this copper pipe, with it attaches. You screw it together, right? That goes up to the top. And I guess it wasn't completely tied down, and some liquid propane got on my neck and caught a little bit on fire. Just a little bit.
Wow.
But it did prompt me to say, maybe it's time to upgrade the flaming tuba. It's been 10 years. Let's take it. So a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, a composer, Michael Giacchino.
Oh, yeah.
He and we were going to Burning Man together for the past two times, and he is having his studio built in his house, his backyard. And so the construction guy there, who knows about everything, he took a look at it and he changed everything, made it a little safer, or made it a lot safer.
Ocean.
So one of the things we got rid of all that copper pipe, and we put more of a UL tested propane hose that goes up to the top of the bell to where the fire part is. So it's much safer. No more leaking on my neck. So
there's your memoir right there.
Leaking on my neck.
Leaking on my neck.
The unauthorized David Silverman story.
Is Michael Giacchino a brass player?
No. He plays keyboard and pretty good drummer as well, but not a brass player.
I mean, I became aware of him because I was a huge fan of Lost, and that soundtrack was just rife with trombone and then the new Star Wars and all the stuff that he's done. He writes great brass stuff. So.
Absolutely, no question about it. But Lost is brilliant because it's string orchestra and trombones.
Yeah,
it's such a and percussion and piano and really brilliant idea. He told me. So. He said, no, I'm not doing jungle music. I'm doing this because it's different.
It was like another character. I mean, that mood that he created was just really, really great.
Yeah. It totally showed his brilliance early on and his inventiveness. Yeah.
So I want to ask you about this, and then I want to get to The Simpsons before we run out of time, since that's like the coolest thing that any of our guests has ever done. Don't tell the rest of our guests, but you went on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno with your flaming tuba. Can you tell us about how that came about?
Yeah, somebody got in touch with me from the Tonight Show. One of the producers who produced, producers produce different segments, and he produced a segment called "Don't Try This at Home," and I think another one. I think it was "Don't Try This at Home" was a segment, and and this was in 2006, and I asked him, well, let me guess, you probably have like production assistants, and somebody saw this online, and he said, absolutely, that's what happened. Somebody saw this online, said, look at this, saw you from Burning Man playing this flaming tuba, and said, well, we've had weird special effects on this show. Maybe he can do this on the Tonight Show. So I said, yeah. And it was actually really great. I met the guy who was they have a special effects, pyro expert on the Tonight Show, to do different crazy gags and so on. And yeah, he said, no, don't worry, it'll be fine. We have a very tall stage here. We've done other pyrotechnics here on the Tonight Show stage. You'll be fine. So, okay. I'll be fine. So that's what happened. And I think Jay Leno and I had met briefly before via The Simpsons, when he was a guest on The Simpsons, or from one of the other Simpson writers. But no, wonderful guy, great guy, really great. Made you feel at home, made you feel comfortable. It was a lot of fun, and he was terrific.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did you start?
It's interesting. By the way, it's interesting. They said, "Do you want to drink to loosen up?" I said, "Well, I probably shouldn't play the flaming tuba on stage. I think I'll need a drink."
And that was even pre-mishap. So yeah, I bet now you're definitely sure that you don't that you're not inebriated.
Everybody stay sober playing a flaming tuba.
Yeah, if you get nothing else from this interview, yeah, take that away. And also, if you're in college and you and two buddies say, "I bet we could turn this into a flaming trombone," you realize that you're an idiot and that you should not do that.
There are flaming trombones. I've seen. There's one there's one that's recently been very popularized on the internet. But I saw one earlier. I think with somebody from Extra Action Marching Band had a flame throwing trombone with a with a pilot sort of light in front of the bell and so forth.
We were pioneers, turns out.
Yeah, you were pioneers. That's right.
I guess so. Flaming bagpipes. There's that. That was
a cool one. That guy on a unicycle too, man.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, I ain't doing no flaming tuba, no unicycle. Thank you very much. That's too much weight. And people do that. They play sousaphones on unicycle. That's not fun.
I knew a guy, another Michigan State guy, and actually, last I heard, he was a sheriff down in Orange County in California.
No,
he was from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Right.
His name was Chris, and he went by OJ Lord of the Ozone. And he would ride to marching band practice on a unicycle, playing the whole way.
Wow. That's amazing.
He was peculiar, and now he's in law enforcement.
Well, see, I can't do that, so I don't really have much talent.
Well, you're not done yet. You
exactly.
All right.
There's still time. Come on, man.
A lot of dental insurance and give it a shot.
Yeah.
Get Geico to sponsor an ad.
This has absolutely nothing to do with anything, but when you mentioned bagpipes, I was reminded of a clip that I saw online where I think it was in Glasgow that there was a guy who had a speaker and a mic, and he was standing on a street corner, and he was just screaming horrible, hateful stuff about how, gay people are evil and this and that. And I mean, just really, really repugnant, horrible stuff. And the reason that I have seen this clip is because all of a sudden, from the right side of the screen, a guy walks up to this guy with bagpipes on, and the guy stands 5 feet in front of him and starts playing the bagpipes as loud as he possibly can, and he completely drowns out this this hate monger, which the voice was bouncing off of the buildings and the bagpipes, and the guy just and he won because the guy left because the bagpipe guy just had his body language. You could tell he was I can do this all day. It was awesome. Yeah, that was a victory for the people and for the internet. So
that's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, good stuff.
The power of music, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Changing lives, people.
Yep. So, and I know that they don't have the same Bill of Rights that we do in Scotland, but you're still preserving the gentleman's First Amendment rights, and yet shutting them up too. That's
absolutely
some next level stuff right there. So, so how did you start working on The Simpsons?
Well, I got out of UCLA in '83, and this was a point where animation was really in kind of nothing was really happening. But 4 years later, I found myself working on the Tracy Ullman Show via another film called One Crazy Summer, which had 10 minutes of animation in it. The main character, played by young John Cusack, is a cartoonist, so there's animation. His drawings come to life. So I animated on that, Cute and Fuzzy Bunnies. And one of the other animators on that show was a gentleman named Wes Archer, and he had worked for a small company called Klasky Chupo, and Klasky Chupo had gotten the Tracy Ullman Show contract to animate work of Matt Groening, who, as I was a big fan, we were all big fans of Matt Groening at the time, of his Life in Hell comic. And I was looking forward to, this would be great to meet him and to work with him and see what happens. And that turned out to be The Simpsons. And we did 48 Simpson shorts on the Tracy Ullman Show. Then it became a series in the beginning of '89, and they made Wes and I directors. And first thing I did was the opening title sequence. That's where we got Lisa playing the baritone saxophone.
Nice.
Thanks to my suggestion of her playing the tuba, but that didn't work, thankfully. And it did get her onto the baritone saxophone. So one idea leads to another. So So directing in the first season, then they made me supervising director, and which I did until I left to go to DreamWorks and then Pixar. But then I came back to The Simpsons, and they again wanted me to be supervising director, and then I directed The Simpsons movie, and like that. And now, currently, since the movie, I've been consulting producer, which means they go to me for advice and they show me drawings, and I do drawings and occasionally direct an episode or I've directed a commercial for the Super Bowl. I've directed a short called Maggie Simpson in the Longest Daycare. So, yeah, I'm still very much active. Oh, and I appeared on The Simpsons when they went to a festival in the desert called Blazing Guy. And I appeared as the flaming tuba guy in Blazing Guy.
You're going to be typecast if you're not careful.
Yeah. No. Well, so goodness gracious, there's a few hours worth of. See, this is similar to when we hired Steve Gadd, the legendary drummer, to play a couple of tracks on the last Boston Brass album that Lance and I recorded, and he came to the studio. And he was like the nicest guy you could ever hope to meet. And back in the day, he was he had a reputation for being a little gruff at times, and he was like so nice. And I was like, he was very personable, and I was like firing questions at him because it's like Steve bleeping Gadd is like standing right here, And at one point, I've been on the receiving end of those, like in a lobby after a concert or whatever, and I all of a sudden had like a moment of self-awareness, and I said, I'm really sorry. I can stop the interview now. And he just smiled and he said, it's cool, kid. You're asking me interesting bleep. And so he just kind of like nodded, like made this motion, like I'd keep him coming. So, and I'm just asking him about everything. So, I could have talked to him for like a week, and it's the same thing with you with The Simpsons. But do you have any favorite episodes that either that because you were involved or otherwise that jump out at you after 28 seasons?
Wow. I do. I mean, there are many great episodes.
Sure.
I mean, the one that I directed, I'll still think is a great episode, was called Homie the Clown, where Homer becomes a Krusty the Clown lookalike.
Right.
The monorail episode, which Rich Moore did, which is a wonderful, terrific.
That's legendary.
Legendary episode. Also, speaking of Nothing Can Possibly Go Wrong, Wes Archer directed an episode, Itchy and Scratchy Land, which I still think is one of the great episodes of the past. Most any episode in the second season, they're all great. They're all really interesting, amazing episodes. But more recently, I've been a while back. I really liked the episode called The Book Job, where they basically, it's a parody of Ocean's 11, where they write a young adult book, kind of Harry Potter-like book. Very funny episode. I don't know. There's so many great episodes.
Sure.
Recent ones, old ones. It's hard to pick a favorite,
How do you advise? Do young animators reach out to you and like, how do you do this? I mean, people hit up Andrew and me like, I want to be in an orchestra or I want to play professionally, and so we field lots of questions like that. I'm guessing that you field questions like that, and how do you deal with them?
Oh well, I just sort of give basic advice, and the thing is different. I mean, it's very different in the film. Everybody's path is kind of crazy how we get to where we are. I think it seems to me when it comes to like playing brass instruments or playing any instrument and then like talking about getting involved in orchestra and so forth, there's certain things you can say that are a bit more direct than what I have to offer, especially because animation has been changing. Because I got into animation, it was all drawing animation, and now computer animation is more on the. So it's harder to be an animator like I was in terms of just drawing. So I don't have as much advice on computer animation because I don't do it that much per se, or at all, really. I mean, I've directed films that are computer animated, but I haven't physically done computer animation myself. So, but I can only apply what I've known from drawing animation to that. But
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
It does seem. I mean, that you kind of reinforced my hunch, which is every story that I've heard of people who end up making it in Hollywood. They're very, very, very different paths.
Yeah.
They converge in one spot. Any shows that are catching your eye right now that you think, oh, they're doing interesting stuff. This is cool. I like what they're doing.
Oh, you mean animated shows?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like Archer and Rick and Morty, and I also love Bob's Burgers.
Mm-hmm.
Great show. Yeah.
Well, can you explain Vaudevillians to us? The villains?
Oh yeah, Vaudevillians. Interesting story there. I had played played around different smaller bands, and I guess I really wasn't doing that much playing. A little bit of playing around Los Angeles. I had played the actor Peter Weller is a very good trumpeter, and he would have a jazz group play at the cigar club that I belonged to, called the Grand Havana Room. I like smoking cigars, and I played with him there, and one of the bartenders there, named Dawn Lewis, well, she and her husband started this band called Vaude and the Villains, and that's kind of that was sort of the way I sort of got into that. So I have cigar smoking to thank for that. You never know what's going to lead to what, right? So
go ahead, kids, smoke the cigar.
I'll have a cigar. Why don't you? So they had just formed that year, and it was in 2008. And I went to see them, and I thought, wow, that looks like a lot of fun. I'd love to sit in with them. So what happened was that they went to the West Hollywood Halloween Carnival. We just kind of barnstormed it with a marching band, with a New Orleans style band singing and playing. And Andy called me. Andy Como, Don's husband, asked me, would you like to join us for that? And I said, sure. So I did, and I knew all the songs, and we had a great time. And then beginning of 2009, he said, would you like to come to rehearsal and join the band? And I said, yes, I would. So that's how that happened.
That's cool. So can you describe what happens at a typical, if there is such a thing, typical show?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the way Andy describes it, it's a 1930s New Orleans style orchestra and cabaret, and we play music. There's dancing, burlesque, not really more cabaret dancing, not burlesque dancing, and the music ranges from New Orleans inspired, to like Americana. It's everything from New Orleans tunes to Motown to, there's a couple of, it was kind of inspired by the Pete Seeger sessions of Bruce Springsteen, by that sort of large group of musicians.
I see.
And we do play now just maybe one or two songs covering that, like John Henry and Eyes on the Prize. We used to do more, but we've been slowly replacing a lot of covers we do. We still do a number of covers, but we're doing a lot more original music. How
often does the band work?
It depends. I mean, we usually a couple of shows a month, and then we do some small tours here and there. So it all depends. I don't know as much about it because I'm in the band. I don't run it.
That's nice to be there.
Yeah, I do like that aspect of it. But no, it's been a completely wonderful boon to my playing, because it's got me playing a lot more on stage and playing off the top of my head and memorizing music. I don't have any music in front of me when I play. I like to have it all in my head. So I memorize the charts, and it's very liberating.
There you go.
And it's really helped. Obviously, when you do a lot of that sort of playing, your ear gets better, and you start learning how to. Oh, well, I'm just playing. I have no idea what the music is. I'm just going to try to figure out the chords as we go along. Mm-hmm. And occasionally somebody will yell out a chord, or a number. That was the other great thing when I learned. If somebody just gives me the number, I know what chord to play. That was because with hand signals. I was I was with Ben Jaffe, and he had invited me to join a New Orleans style funeral parade for the late great John Brunius. And we were marching along. There were like, I don't know, there were like about 4 or 5 of his tuba players. And clearly I was not quite sure what the song was. And Ben caught my eye and he started giving me hand signals. 4 chord, 5 chord, 1 chord, 2 chord, And
is that the great. 1 chord, or is he flipping me the bird?
Exactly.
We are just about out of time, but I got to ask you 2 more Simpsons things. The first one, which is actually not an ask, a friend of mine named Herschel Gelman. I'm sure you obviously know the Who Shot Mr. Burns episode, but you probably remember that there was a contest about like figuring out.
I actually worked on putting in all the clues. Yes.
There you go. So Herschel never entered the actual contest, but in the Usenet group alt.tv.simpsons, he posted what turned out to be correct. I won't spoil it for anyone, even though this is 22 years later. And anyway, fast forward, and in 2005 is when that episode came out on DVD, and the commentary track is David Merkin, and yes. He said that very few people got it right, and then the quote was, the guy with the college email address was the first one to get it right, and Herschel looked up on the Usenet group, and he was the only one with a .edu email address, and then went on further. David said that they tried to get in touch with him, and that they couldn't because his college email address didn't work anymore. So he wanted to be pointed out that he was the guy that he didn't even catch this for a number of years. Someone brought it to his attention who was a part of that group, and I think he almost fell out of his chair when he heard Merkin talking about how that was the guy. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, right. So that was his moment of Simpsons fame. So, wow. And then the other thing is that pretty much the April 7th of 2002 was like the highlight of television history, which is when Fish appeared on The Simpsons, which is a band I'm obsessed with. And that when I remember, this was before Lance was in Boston Brass, but we were in Kansas, and this was long before Hulu or anything else like that. So it was like I had to make sure that I was in the hotel room, by the time that it started. Did you have anything to do with that episode?
Well, yeah. I mean, I worked on it. I was at the time I was supervising director again, I believe, and we worked on it. Worked on caricatures of Fish, and it was a very funny episode. It's one that Homer was taking medicinal marijuana.
That the first scene of when he first takes it, and he is he's shaving, and the
rainbows.
Yeah, the rainbow. He like cuts his face, and there's like rainbows spurting out of his face. That's one of the. Yes. Oh my goodness, it's hilarious. Yeah, that's.
Well, it has one of my favorite lines about the fact that they had spaced the election. Well, we got to do something. We can't just stand here staring at our hands unless.
And then the whole plot of the thing when they like show up on the wrong day for the rally and the votes already happened. It's like, yeah, it's that's quality television right there.
Yeah, and then it ends up being a very modest nod to Weekend at Bernie's.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And it's called Weekend at Burnsy's.
The episode's but Weekend at Burnsy.
Yep.
Yeah, so I love the marionette animation of Burns at the end.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good
also,
one.
One of my favorite chants. We are mollified. We are mollified.
Good stuff. So we are basically out of time, but we need to ask you if you might have any advice for your fellow Los Angeles resident Jens Lindemann in terms of the chop problems that he's been undergoing of late.
Yes, I understand you're having trouble with pork chops. I suggest there are many fine recipes out there. I can't list them all, but you should. I think there might be a Homer Simpson pork chop recipe. You might want to work on that one. So that's my chops advice.
The key is bone in. That's the key. Yeah, that's when it keeps that way. It's a family podcast. All right. Well, without further ado, is there? What do we need to plug for you?
Oh, well, let's see. I guess I'll. People in Morocco can catch me at the animation festival there that'll be taking place in Fez around March 17th.
We are huge in Morocco.
Yeah, huge. Yeah. I am going to be at Jazz Fest.
Cool.
I'm not sure if it's announced, but it'll be the first weekend of Jazz Fest. I'll be performing with the great Paul Sanchez, who's been very generous and has had me on the Jazz Fest stage before, playing along with the Rolling Road Show.
Awesome.
So that'll be the first weekend of Jazz Fest. So look that up. And I'm I'm always honored and amazed that I'm on the stage of Jazz Fest. It shouldn't happen, folks. It's not my doing, honestly. It's not my fault. So
what are you going to do? Say no? You got to go.
Exactly. Say no.
They have allowed me.
I'm not worthy. They shut up and grab your horn. So, okay, fine.
I have also been to Jazz Fest 4 times, but I paid to get in. And they said, no, you can't bring that tuba in, sir. and stay hydrated.
See, where else am I dragging the tuba? We are playing, well, actually, by the time this broadcast airs, I think we've already played the Broad stage on March 10th, so that'll be in the past.
Cool.
So,
but it was a good gig, man. You guys were burning.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And as long as no flames shot out of a trombone mouthpiece, then it was a successful gig.
I don't play the flaming tuba with Vaughn and the Villains that often, although we did once at the we were invited to a couple of times to the said Halloween Carnival, and one time I cleared it with a fire marshal and played the flaming tuba at the Halloween Fest in West Hollywood. Fabulous.
Cool.
Well, if we're ever in the same place at the same time, Andrew and I will bribe you into playing with Lance LaDuke and the Malcontents, which is it's me, Andrew, and a drummer, and it's all comedy songs.
Oh, great!
So we can we'll recruit you whether you like it or not.
Absolutely. What are you guys coming to Los Angeles?
Not soon enough. We'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, that would be. I don't miss being on the road all the time, and that's putting it lightly. Although getting to places like L.A. and I got a few dear friends there, every so often, I do miss that aspect of it. So, for sure. So it'll happen. We'll. I just heard him offer to set us up a high-paying gig, Lance. I don't know about you, but he doesn't have that much going on, so he's got enough time to he's like
right.
DreamWorks, Pixar, Simpsons, Flaming Tubas. Other than that, not much. So, well, hopefully you can really make something of yourself at some point, David. So it seems
I would hope so.
Seems like you're on the right track.
Just spinning my flaming wheels.
Well, this has really been a pleasure. Thank you very much, and thank your parents for loaning you to us for an hour during your visit. And I think, Lance, is there anything I'm forgetting?
No, just another thanks. It's been great.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
We had a wonderful time. Anytime.
Sounds great.
Great to chat with you.
And that is going to do it for another episode of The Brass Junkies. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to help support the podcast in order to make more episodes like this one possible, please visit pedalnotemedia.com/donate for more details. Also, be sure to check out our latest recording, The Brass Recording Project, at brassrecordingproject.com. The Brass Junkies is produced by Joey Santillo. Executive producers are Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.